uploading this. But this is what I wanted to show y'all. When you don't let nobody get you caught up in European Freemasonry. No disrespect. And the difference from true Masonry, originally developed by the God-man of Africa, was designed as a ladder which climbed from the finite to the infinite, the heart of the fallen humanity, back to the heart of its creator. But I want to show y'all how this is their paperwork when I tell y'all they're only 32 and 33 degrees. But the secret ritual of the secret works of the secret rituals of the secret work of the ancient Arabic order of noble of the mystic shrine, the Imperial Grand Council of the ancient Arabic noble of nobles of the mystic shrine, Dr. B.H. Stilwell, 33 degrees, Imperial Grand Potentate, July 1914, Washington, D.C. Listen what I told y'all, only 32 and 33 degrees. I'm going to show y'all. And when I show y'all stuff, you can't get upset, especially Clock of Destiny. When people be always trying to talk about this, that, and the other, I said the only reason why a person to talk about something and diss it, because they don't know the science. The teachings is right. The science is right. You just got to understand it. When I talk about the ancient rite of Memphis and Mizraim, and I'm going to show you another document. Watch this. When I say a lot of people just suppressed the science and took an oath. What? To keep you buried in a shallow grave. Watch this. I just showed you there, it's only 32 degrees, and I showed you the year was 1914. Listen to this. Master Fard Muhammad. If it ain't him, oh well. That ain't what we talking about. You know, all the religious Negroes want to get their hold in him, whatever. Under the alias David Ford, picture under the upper left-hand corner, there are many Masons shown in this picture. The development of the MSTA saw the influence of many high-degree Black Shriners, Masons, and secret societies, particular the ancient Egyptian Arabic order of nobles. But here you go, no disrespect to no one. But here you go, you got the Europeans, no disrespect to nobody. I'm just giving you the science. Call themselves the ancient Arabic order of nobles of Mystic Shrine, 1914, right? Now let's proceed. When I tell you, a copy you. And see, when brothers take the oath, they get their charter from somebody that they got the science from, and then the science came, and they know the science came from you. No disrespect to nobody. How can you say you study more science and you talk about God and man is one in Islam and you got some potentate? Think about it. And then don't call yourself no Black Freemason, because man, we can break all the technicalities down on that. But many Masons and secret societies, particularly the ancient Egyptian Arabic orders of nobles of the Mystic Shrine, started by Noble Ali Rofel Pasha and John George Jones in 1893. In 1893, on here you got Dr. H. Stillingworth, Grand Potentate, 1914. 1914. I hope you see in the science. That's why they only 32 and 33 degrees. I'm telling you, even when Dr. Ben, when he went to Egypt, Kemet, he had to be with the locals. Come on, man. To understand certain things, to understand certain signs and symbols. Come on, man. The secret societies played a role in the events during the late 20s and 30s and governmental changes in America that have great importance to the events happening presently in the respect to the subject of reparations and the New World Order. And I hope when I say New World Order, I hope y'all ain't getting it caught up in the spooky, scary stuff. But you see how we got to correct stuff? More should be sharing this, but they don't want to share the teachings because they lying to people. More talk about, oh, Masonry, some European. I said, man, you got to be crazy. It's only two thought processes in the world, and that's theology and Masonry. And I ain't talking about nothing outside yourself. I'm talking about that Señor Moore's Quran, chapter 5, starting at verse 12. Read it. I'm talking about our Mateo's Adapt Manual. I'm talking about the same thing. I'm talking about the Kemetic principles. I'm talking about all this science that what perfect the man. That's what I'm talking about. And we're going to get all of it. Watch. That's when I tell y'all, it's a difference. What I teach is how you decline the ladder from the finite to the infinite. You know, the heart of fallen humanity back to the heart of the great God Allah, or the creator. And this holy instruction became a 24/7 way of life of masterminds that we like to call ourselves. Carnal men later reduced this spiritual unfoldment to religious services. But in true masonry, there are a series of tools used to create a building not made by hands. What building not made by hands? Your true tabernacle, the most holy place, the holy place, and a quarter roundabout. I keep telling y'all, man. The temple of the perfected man. And no disrespect to nobody. When Europeans, this is just the teachings, because you can trace history. When they pillaged the universities, the temples, and the lodges of ancient Egypt, they stole and killed everything they could. And collectively, these sacred pathways are called Solomon's Temple. Hey, Noble, man, look, I know my mom was asking me about that Saturnalia, and I told you open up a can of worms. Because, you know, my mother, a scholar, man, she was like, yeah, you know, that's why a lot of, you know, different people, rich, all these elites, whatever, they dress up like the opposite sex and do that weird stuff. That's why you see Giuliani dressed up in a dress and all this stuff. I mean, we going to talk up on that stuff, Noble. But yeah, you open up a can of worms on that one. But in true masonry, there are a series of tools used to create a building not made by hands. The temple of the perfected man, right? And later stole the tools, the symbols and rituals that were used to build the Roman Catholic, the York and Scottish Rite orders, and used them against their African victims. And these Western orders, now what they happen? They beehive into what? So-called Illuminati. And I say, you are the enlightened one. You don't let nothing scare you. It would be nothing but a game of cavemen in all of African valuables, including the crescent and the moon, including the scimitar and the pheasants. They were removed. I give you all the Constitution. Nevertheless, when Freemasonry is used in this science, I'm referring to the crime as Western Freemasonry, because no science came from the West. All came from the East. These are facts. I did this on college campus. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, that's garbage. I proved this on a college campus. I showed Socrates and Plato and Aristotle was nothing but a pen. And they couldn't have been knew each other. Because can't no scientist teach can't no philosopher teach you no science. Philosophy and science is two different things. That's the XO and XO. And the only way you're going to know both and deter to both is you must study both. I hope you follow me. People, they give you the connotated father of medicine. That ain't true. Because if you understand the Adapt Wisdom and our Rosicrucian manual, you will understand some things. And then you can come from historical perspective and you can break all the signs and symbols down in the medical field and all that and prove where it came from. Right? To most devoted Masons, Moors, I'm explaining this, that Freemasonry, a god made of certain European men who they self-serve religiously. It's no disrespect. I'm just telling you science. Freemasonry, as one of the most powerful gods of Europe, is the source from which other skin. There's no disrespect. You can call it whatever you want, pale skin, whatever you want to call it. Males drew the strength to give themselves the title of white. All you got to do is look the stuff up. Today, white is accepted as normal and often understood as proper. When a European, no disrespect, because in writings, if you're going to call it, they're going to distinct themselves from, well, yeah, that's a European Jew. These ain't me. People make these are words to be used. So I ain't coming from no racial place because I love all that love me. But that's who they are addressing, or that's who they are being addressed. But however, in the ministries of our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, this is propaganda. And it is brought to surface. What title does Satan give himself? And the answer is God. And to illustrate the covert power of the mighty fraternal order, to this day, nearly all Negro, blacks, and colored people call them somebody else a God every time they call them white per se. And the unsung story is 99% of Negro, blacks, and colors have absolutely no idea Western Freemasonry and Illuminati are the foremost world order deities of Europe, Morris. And especially those brothers of African descent, or whatever you want to call it, who blindly serve the order of Western Freemasonry more faithfully than they do themselves. You see what I'm saying? And it's the magnitude of the works of the Freemasonry and its impact on the profane world, forcefully isolate outside of the lodges. I'm not saying some stuff is, I'm talking about things that I know, especially when it's dealing with Negroes. I'm talking about making sure you know who you are legally and lawfully and spiritually. The 5 pillars. I'm not here to offend or defame no organization. All the hand grips, signs, passwords, rituals, all that stuff is purposely omitted unless relevant to its purpose, And this is respect more that we're talking about. So the purpose of this sign, what I'm giving y'all, is to give life into the unconscious mind state of the Moors. I want you to be exhumed. Exhumed, we're doing something. We're exhuming our bodies, whole as a people, intact as a nation. That's the teachings of Brother Yeshua told John. The truth can make you free. And in any case, Moors, of raising the dead, being the handiwork of the masterminds, it's always the conquest of the illusionist, the obstacle between dormant life and certainty of its resurrection, Moors. We're trying to exhume ourselves. We're trying to exhume ourselves. And as for the entity of Masonry, Moors, and the role it plays in the resurrection of the so-called Negro people, if a person needs to get from Wednesday to Friday, you got to go through Thursday. And see, this is the simple science that I tell Moors. Get that hate out of you. It is not disrespectful to go through Thursday, right? From its day through night to get to Friday. It's a necessity. And in the course of human events, Moors, it's just a natural fact. Someone put Friday behind Thursday. That's also, if you want to get to the tomb of the unknown nation, Moors, buried underneath the Constitution of the United States, where the unconscious African rulers lay in state, he or she must go through the secret seal of Freemasonry. I'm telling you. That's when I tell more, when I cringe, when they say they talk about they don't study the science, I shake your hand and leave. That's how you can let somebody talk over you and think that stuff means something. The mighty fraternal order is secretly sealed stone of opposition that guards the entrance of this dismal crypt. And a history occurred during the later few centuries. And it reveals someone placed these events in that certain order. And today, Moors, that Freemasonry stands as the major blockage of Negro, blacks, and colored people, attained of nationhood under one free national name, and rejoicing the nations of the human family, Moors. And in respect to historical events, it was the work of the secret society which committed the murder, the burial, the victim, and the concealed evidence. It's the unavoidable, it's necessary. We have to do this. We have to exhume the body, man. And to understand the history of anything, what we must do is be placed in the proper light and time and context. When I talk about words and not taking things out of context. But during the past, whatever you want to say, 400, 500 years, whatever, you've been blind. So when I talk about the shallow grave of Freemasonry, don't y'all know who buried there, right? Watch this. This should be simple stuff. Y'all know who buried there, right? Especially when you start looking at, when I say a picture says 1,000 words, Moors got to look at stuff and see the flag and all the stuff that be on and see the pentagon. You be like, wait a minute. The shallow grave of Freemasonry. Who is buried there, y'all? Who is buried there? I mean, I know, like I told you, it's okay to say things because we're not responsible for what we did before when we was unilluminated. That's why you got to, when I say you got to let all that stuff, you got to clean that old stuff up and proceed. Everybody been lied to. Hell, brothers lying to each other right now with feds is on because they're not going to teach the truth or the science because they don't want you to know nothing. So who is buried there, y'all? Who is buried there? The shallow grave of Freemasonry. Who buried there, y'all? Who buried there? This is the stuff that we should know. That's why I be saying it's no science being taught in no temples. This is the stuff that you should know. And what European Master Masons do not want their profane word to know this. That's why I know Badrali taught this stuff in the early 20s. When he talk about the foundation of Western Freemasonry rests upon a murder, you know, of the God man of the Nile. That's like when I show you Elisha Levi, the Transcendental Magic, about the Baphomet. He only talk about certain things where it's all connotated. And I did this on college campuses. They always want to hide stuff and make it an animal figure. And ain't nothing but pious hieroglyphs. Why? To keep you from it. And they laugh at you. That's a Masonic trick. I put it right in your face. I'm telling you. And you don't know the symbol, the signs, what it means. And it means something totally different than what you looking at face value. We're talking about the subjugation of Africa through the dousing of the light in Egypt and obscurity and the true Garden of Eden. Moors, the homicide is disguised in the constitution of Freemasonry as the killing of Haram Abif, the widow's son. The embodiment of this slaying is unquestionably the master crime of times. Haram's death depicts history from the first physical African man to be enlightened with the wisdom to the last mankind, European, to becoming civilized with knowledge and back again. And to understand this murder, to be free, the Negro finds, excuse me, Moors. And to understand this murder is to free the Negro from his disguised grave of perpetual slavery using the only divine key that will separate this mystery or this so-called secret from where it is lodged in Freemasonry. And although Freemasonry is not a religious order, it is predominantly structured from the Bible, the Torah, the Vedas, and the Holy Quran. I'm getting all our little seeds for my smoothie. All of these books lay open on the Masonic altars, pending the height of their degrees. Their degrees. That's why we're more than going to talk about the science, because they don't know it. They don't know why my tassel is this. They think, oh, some temple. Like, man, I don't give a damn who in that temple. A whole bunch of old nobodies. All of these books lay open on a Masonic altar, pending the height of their degrees. And the parable of Haram Abif can be found in the Torah. I'm telling you, it can be found in the Torah, the Old Testament, 1 Kings, the 7th chapter, and its Masonic history is more of a cover-up than a book. It's similar to the fallacy of having a criminal describe his or her crime. I'm telling you. Our prophet became an Egyptian adapt. The same thing that I study, this stuff should be known. And that's why they often mistake him as a Freemason or a higher order of Shriners. Same way here. See, they call themselves Shriner. I say we've been through the shrine. That's the level of degrees. I hope y'all following me, man. You know, that's why we're going to clearly reveal no true God man can become a Muslim who submits his or her will to the will of the great God Allah while simultaneously gives his will, his oath to worshipful of a man, your worshipful master. You can't be that. That's why when I'm more talk about, Brother Bay, Brother Bay of Mason, I say, look me up and see if I'm part of some European charter. If I'm part of some Prince Hall, you'll get your feelings hurt when you find out I'm an adept. When my degrees are 720. I have I have degrees in the moral science. I have degrees from real colleges. I'm a part of the Philosophical Society. I don't have no fake degrees. And see that's the truth when I said they lowered our Prophet Noble Drew Ali to some damn Freemasonry. You know, and I told you, no God man can be a Muslim who submits his or her will to the will of the great God Allah while simultaneously giving his or her will or oath to some worshipful man, a worshipful master. So when Negroes, they be like, oh, Brother Bay, he a Freemason? Don't even know me because I know the degrees. Because I have real comedic degrees. I have real education degrees. I have a bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's degree in business management with a minor in nonprofit startup and marketing sales. I have a master's degree from Grand Canyon University, a dual master's degree in first century religion and first century history with a minor in linguistics. I'm almost done with my Juris Doctor degree from Oklahoma University online in Indigenous People Law and Policy. I have real degrees in metaphysics. So when you see my adapt papers, this is 720 wisdom. I don't have no fake adapt science. That's why I'm saying it's the teachings. The building don't mean nothing. The beginning of Western Freemasonry And this is the vast difference between Western Freemasonry and African self-mastery, whose ancient educators were created and commit. Wait till I get into the clock of destiny. I got to do all this again. That's how I know Moors don't study. But when I tell you it's different explanation of things, and you must understand the SO and the XO. But the European orders of Freemasonry are built upon the later universal laws stolen from the African grand temples, and everything from the tools, the signs, the symbols, and most of the manifest seen by the carnal eye were pillaged northward into Europe. You don't got to believe me. Just research Albert Churchward. He'll tell you. And research all his books on Masonry. He'll tell you. At all costs, Western Freemasonry should never be construed as something beneficial to the children of Africa. And all the lodges of European Freemasonry are built upon sciences, tools, symbols, laws, and rituals, pillaged from the temples, the universities, the lodges, and pyramids of Northeast and Northwest Africa, Moors. That's where the University of Salamanca, the University of Timbuktu, contrary to the Masons' decree of being free, ancient, and accepted, Freemasonry, as it's established today, only recently began at the turn of the 18th century. And its first recorded meeting was held on June 24th, 1717 in London, England, in a tavern called the Goose and the Gridiron. Y'all don't know about that? The social gathering of English aristocrats, men of wealth, education, formulated the Masonic order out of boredom and tardies. They were the elite. They separated from the have-nots and believed they could make good men better. James Anderson, D.D., and the Reverend John Desaguliers, scientist, philosopher, and third Grand Master, centered the founding rituals upon what they knew of the Egyptian Adapt religions of Isis and Osiris, the founding rituals upon which they knew this. What was the mother of all the world's religions? The ancient Egyptian mystery system, the perfection of God and man, has been rearranged into 3 degrees of masonry, Moors. Most of their structures, both building and constitution, were taken from the original African God-man, mainly Solomon, and building of his temple. And yet these lessons can reach back far when the leprous, no disrespect, I'm just giving you the teachers, when the leprous, were first cast out of Amexima, the first true and divine name of Africa, and tow line into the Caucasus Mountains of Europe, to when Moses went to civilize them. If we want to tell a biblical story, I'm just giving you the story. Or in other rituals and forms, Masons will acknowledge other African masters of the same family. Who? Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, David, Hezekiah, Joachim, Joseph, and Yeshua. That's why when you listen to a goofball preacher or any fake sheik, they start dissing things. And I say, man, well, you don't know your lineage. You can't know it, because our prophetess in his ayahs, he said, children, your hair is not nappy. It's really like your brother Jesus, which is Yeshua. I'm telling you, although they must also draw some of their power from the Buddhists, their highest acquirement is to find the God they seek, whose Arabic name is Allah. That's why when they have 32 degrees, once they cross that, they put the fez on and they become Shriners. And that's why they have their fez defiled. And that's why they tassels pinned down, because they don't float 360 degrees. And they're sons of Muslims. You ain't got to listen to me. And they wear the fez clandestine. And the Constitution, which Moors like to post memes, if you just take the fez and the turban away from the Moors, then the next question I ask these Moors, what the Constitution, they don't have it, but I do. So the next question I ask these Moors, why you don't wear your fez? Why you don't wear your fez in public? If the Constitution says if we can just strip the fez, if we can just strip the Moor, the Negro, the black, the color, the fez and their turbans, why you ain't gonna wear it then? I'll wait. See, I'll wait. But Negroes talk about they Moors. You ain't no Moor. And if you Moors, the least you can do is wear your fez at the least. The least you can do is be a part of a brother that teach the science at the least. You see? The Encyclopedia Britannica describes Freemasonry as the world's largest secret society. Malcolm C. Duncan's in Duncan's Masonic Rituals and Monitor, 3rd edition from 1929 to 1966, writes quite candidly to say, it is a fraternal order for freeborn white men, sound of limb, not blind, deaf, or crippled, of age 21 or older, binding its initiates to one another and to the institution for life by oath. It is always good to know the heart of given subjects. So let's examine the free, ancient, and accepted principles of Freemasonry. I showed y'all on a paperwork that in 1914 that they ain't nothing. No disrespect. And they only 32 degrees, right? I demonstrated that. And then I demonstrated to you where the science came from. And way older than that. And I just demonstrated that. Let me show you. I told y'all, man, people hide stuff from you. But when you were a student and when you were a scholar and an adept, this stuff was passed out to the Nation of Islam in the 30s and then reissued in the 60s. I demonstrated this before, but I'm going to demonstrate it later. But I just want to show you the picture of the prophet. And I'm going to read and I'm going to illustrate it. When I show you that the science is older, I show you that the European, no disrespect, Dr. B.H. Stillworth, 33 degrees in July 1914, some imperial grand potentate. Now watch this. Now watch this. Let me read this to you. All the religious people want to, the religious Muslims, that ain't Fire Muhammad, whatever. But I can get you some government files and show you him and J. Edgar Hoover talk about how they creating the black nation and how they ain't want to, and how they want to bury Noble Drew Ali in a shallow grave. I'm telling you, they don't want to talk about that though. This was issued out to the Nation of Islam in the 30s and the 60s. This is deep, way more. Master Fire Muhammad under his alias David Ford, picture in the upper left-hand corner. If nobody people want to argue about that, I don't give a damn about that. There are many Masons shown in this picture. The development of the MSTA saw the influence of many high-degree black Shriners, Masons, and secret societies. Particular, the ancient Egyptian Arabic orders of nobles of the mystic shrine started by Noble Ali Rofelt Pasha and John George Jones in 1893. In 1893. But then when Negroes, when they join that Masonry and they get their charter from a European, no disrespect to nobody. I'm just giving you law. How I know? Because I know. I sit at the table. I know this. No disrespect. And I'm not saying I'm know-it-all. This is 1914. I'm just saying I'm part of things that we deal with science. And we can't deal with no bull crap. And this is all stuff that's just what it is, man. You see that? But then you got Rofel Pasha and John George Jones started in 1893. The ancient Egyptian Arabic orders of the nobles of the mystic shrine. Huh? You see that? But then you got this here. It started in 1914. And this is what Negroes want to hold up. I said, man, that ain't nothing. The science come from somewhere. So you must give credit to the original. That's all. We have to. And that's why I said most brothers that's Masons, Prince Hall, Scottish Rite, they don't know nothing. Especially they call themselves black. That's why they don't want to teach it. That's why, man, look, let's finish. I'm telling you. Y'all know I'm telling the truth. The Masonic coffin and Africa's acacia tree. More don't even know what the ACACIA tree is all about. When y'all see that, when y'all see that tree right in front of the shallow grave, Moors. I mean, this is stuff when Moors be wearing their symbols, the Masons, they be wearing their symbols. When I talk to brothers, when I go to their lives, especially when I go back to Michigan, a lot of my brothers was Masons that I knew back home. I said, man, you tripping. You got to come out of that. You know? But this is the things that we got to understand, right? Right, Moors? But in Freemasonry, the coffin is showcased as an emblem of mortality. The prefix mort, M-O-R-T, always relate to death. The word mortality refers to human death on a massive scale, war, disease, catastrophe, and genocide. Look, man. Don't y'all look? Let me show y'all how when people get caught up in the wrong words and linguistics. When they talk about Uncle Tom, and then I told y'all a lot of words come from Greek. Like Tom, when you research what Tom means, it's like when you call a girl a Tom. That means she's strong. So it's the more teaching. So I want you to keep that in your head, and I want you to keep like pharmaceuticals. And the root of pharmaceutical is pharma. Research what pharma mean in Greek. I'm telling you, but anyway, let's keep going on. The prefix mort always relate to death. The word mortality refers to human deaths on a massive scale. I gave you that. So the West African God-man who civilized Spain, Italy, and Portugal for 800 years, because the real science and history tells you that the Moors ruled Spain for 700 years. It's movies that talk about the Moors. They was the trusted keeper of the ancient mystery system, Moors. Of God in man. His infinite wisdom is true tools which build Solomon's temple. The lodges of Western Freemasonry used the coffin to conceal their murder of the Western African God-man. The sprig of acacia, a tree indigenous to the continental Africa, is the Masonic tombstone, now marking the grave of the first man formed in human flesh to indeed be African. An upright five-pointed pentagram denotes Morocco as his exact West African jurisdiction. Morocco was the capital of the old Moorish Empire. And I showed y'all coffins. I showed y'all all those coffins of various orders of Freemasonry. When you start looking up and look at their coffins, all various of Freemasons have coffins. What Negroes they never ask is who in the coffin. That's why I be laughing. Negroes ain't ask who in the coffin. Man, one of my professors said, man, the only people is Negro, black, and colored that complain about education and won't let their real educators educate. And then most of them sold out. I'm telling you, because a lot of them sold out. If you listen to their language, they'll tell you, I'm going to take you here, but I can't take you no far. Why? Because I took an oath. They'll tell you. I'm telling you, I'll pull up their document. You'll be like, damn, he said that out of his mouth. I'll say, yep, your ears got to be attuned. I'm telling you, can't get mad at me. That's why they'll never wear their fez. That's why they'll never talk about true international law. They'll talk about this black stuff, and then they'll talk in circles. But then I'll be like, and then you say, well, and what are more? Then they start talking and say, okay, well, why you won't wear a fez? I'm telling you, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. Hell. They all bear the pentagram. Some stars are open and some closed, but all represent man. All coffins has been the acacia sprig. But some also boldly displayed the murder weapon, the city maul, used to render the final blow to Haram of beef. I give y'all this all the time. It's in your Bible. It was two Haram of beefs. One, the Haram of Tyre. Who killed him? In the Bible. Research it. Others show their very shovel of the constitutional law used to bury him in a northwest shallow grave. In a northwestern shallow grave. Although dead, he was trained to walk around as what? A Negro, black, and colored people, but never to realize himself as God. I mean, I'll give you all the analogies in the scriptures. The fringe and zigzags of Haram would never enable him to rise from the world's most secret massacre, whole intact, as one nation bearing one free national name. Look, man, y'all ain't got to get mad at me. That's how I know Moors don't be studying the teachers and they get assigned somewhere else because they don't study and they operate in their lower ego. And they get upset when a teacher teaches. I'm a teacher, man. That's why I teach people. But if these Western Masonic coffins could talk, they would say they the same. You got to notice the Moorish pentagram. Some men mark our tombstones with Negro, black, and colored. Others with African Americans. And we are buried here to rest in pieces as property. When they tell you rest in peace, y'all ain't even catching it. Don't rest in peace. They talk about you rest in peace and pieces as property. Y'all not catching the words. These marks are truly slave names that were given to us as conquered West African nationals during the lawful times of slavery, 1779 to 1865. We bear but one free national name, which was Moorish Americans, but no one has heard us yet. And soon all coffins will talk. Then the earth will tremble from the truth, but will rejoice and marvel from the divine life being returned to the dry bones, which had been left to dry from the perpetual mental deaths in the noonday. Y'all follow me? When you talk about a Mason being free, make no mistake about it, the destruction of Western Freemasonry Moors is an expression of freedom for certain males with pale skin, age 21, with sound mind and body. Look it up. You ain't got to be mad at me. That's why I be telling Moors, like, how can you be part of something that ain't even, that they burying you with the African God, man, temporary embodied for a few centuries. The criminals fancied themselves safe to introduce the world Europe's version of peace on earth and freedom to all men. The suffix free in Freemasonry is of great significance because it established the very status of their order and the intent of its members. That's why our Prophet Noble Drew Ali and myself, I teach Moors, although you were born here or you were born free, you will come to know that nothing is free until it is of itself, clean, pure, and unmixed. That's why he says, be yourself. As water offers freedom for fish to swim, as air offers freedom for birds to fly, like so sorcery offers freedom for masons to work and not be detected. When any living thing is free, it is due to the natural autonomy which offers security and glory of their own prosperity. I'm telling you, our prophet Noble Drew Ali, and I give y'all the instructions to be free. We are the clean and pure nation, descendants from the inhabitants of Africa or Morocco. Do not describe to beg for things, you know? Neither do I want to serve God of somebody's religion, because of our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. Therefore, I'm returning back to the church of Christianity, back to the other nationalities. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We ain't got to speak on that. As it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, I self-law and master, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. Read her to your Moorish Quran, chapter 48, verse 6 and 8. The key is the holy prophet was teaching a people yet to be realized as a nation. Only the subject burial delays this realization. And the Negro, black, and colored males are denationalized nationalists, men woven into property by the constitutional laws of a declared people. And this is why Freemasonry is forbidden to Negro, black, and colored African men and other slaves spoken on later in this science that I'm going to give y'all. That's why when you see a European, when they see me with my signs and symbols, when me and my dad was down at the Tucson fair, and when I made all our coats, we got our signs and symbols. My dad got his family crest, and so my dad was getting some fries, and no disrespect, an Albion man, a European man, pleasant guy. He asked my dad, first thing he asked my dad, Prince Hall. My dad was like, no, Moorish master committed to master. He was like, oh, and then I promise you, the white dude gave his little bow out. My dad was like, no. My dad started explaining. He was like, no, this is 99 degrees. We're connecting God and man, blah, 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 coming from love. And it just spills out when the person asks. And no disrespect, bow down. They're sons of Muslims. I'm telling you. And they see me with my fez on. I rock my fez all day. They know. They know, man. I'm righteous. Freedom has always been mysterious and unknown to the Negro. No Negro, black, or colored person, Morris, has ever known freedom. How can anyone, Negro or other man-made beast, possibly be free while in want of their right mind? No one has ever searched for an unknown treasure for simple reason. They are no conscious of its value and existence, right? As all things must conform to its nature, right? Right? So it should be remembered, Moors, the only light of divinity and knowledge was centered in Kemet of Akibalan and other continents people, by the original families with you. No disrespect to nobody else. All other nationalities were completely without any form of education, culture, science, and basic intellect until the advent of Moses, per se, and the later Greeks called Alexander. I'm telling y'all, listen to the story. This is to say the word Mason esoterically mean mass of sun, self-worshiping of a different nationality man unto himself. And Masons reveal this as they refer to themselves as what? The widow's son. But if you are more, especially if you are the depth, you know better than that. To Masons, all women are widows because they can only sustain and deliver the sons of men. And hence any man she either marries or conceived by, alternately, must be her son and leave her widowed without a husbandman. So therefore our free sons of a widow, right, man. That's right. Y'all need to spell that. Free from the woman and the widow. You see how the strange program it is? But then again, when we talk about Nimrod, watch this. Didn't he supposed to marry his mother? And in this ceremonial remembrance with an evergreen every December, the 25th. You see that? When I tell you it's all different type of strange things about Christmas. You got the Saturnalia, you got that. You got in the Netherlands, you got Santa Claus. When they talk about Black Pete or Swordy Piet, talk about that ain't no more. The reason why the European dress up in blackface, because he came down the chimney and that's chimney dust. But we're in real science to tell you that that's Morris attire. So once a Mason has proclaimed himself free, the next step is to state that he is also ancient. But however, since all true Freemasons are of different hue, Here again, we find the word ancient has also been clam jump and obscured by any old African master. So how can a person be ancient? You know, right? All Negroes have been made in the colonial USA, which is less than 250 years old. The African origin of the word ancient begins about 10,000 BC and works its way backward beyond Lemuria before the great earthquake. And this brings surface a reasonable question, Moors. Since all Negro blacks of color are made in the United States of America, then how can any Negro Mason truly be? This when I say this elementary, because if taught the truth, with the black people cannot be a lawful day older than a history of the United States. Right? That's why as far Masons using the word ancient, it nearly always implies to a different nationality. It roots in the Egyptian flower pot of Africa. And different nationalities, y'all know what I'm talking about, themselves have not been civilized long enough to have ancient history. Think about it. This is something me and my dad talk about. Listen to this. When a different nationality talk about they grew up in caves with some damn dinosaurs. I'll let you have that. Why are you arguing with somebody talk about they grew up in cave with dinosaurs and they killing animals with spears and you think they done live when it's freezing cold outside in some damn cave? I mean, come on, man. I mean, the stuff is crazy. And this is the thing. We can say we can trace some dinosaurs that's such and such 1,000 years old, but we can't trace who the Negro is, the black, the color, the Latino, the Mexican, genetically. And we can't do that? Come on, man. Y'all got to be crazy. And they can only trace their history to about 1500 BC. And anything they claim knowledge of prior to that date is purely prehistory. Media orchestrated guesswork with a heavy accent on hiding the truth. You know? So most people won't tell you about the dark ages. You know? They won't acknowledge their true origin. So they place the beginning of their lives in the obscurity of primate parents and the dark ages. But they won't tell you what the dark ages and the medieval times is really about. And the true essence of the ancient times is the first consciousness to the harmony of U.S. laws established by the torchbearers of civilization being issued for the government of man on earth. And these laws created with the original man were passed on with sacred care to their descendants who evolved in today's forefathers. And it also included all the sciences, geometry, astronomy, and the holistic living. Don't y'all hear me? This I got more that this the Bible, and I say, well, in the Bible, it talks about all the herbs for healing. I can show you all in the Bible, all the herbs that we be blending. I can show you so many herbs in the Bible. And you're gonna tell me that book is not good because you're being taught wrong. It's herbs for healing, all talk through the biblical scriptures, all through the scripture. It tell you what food to eat and what food not to eat. That's how they live for long. And y'all taking stuff out of context because everything that we ate came from nature. We raised stuff. The scriptures testify to that. You talk about some Muslims, they don't eat pork because no, dietary laws. We under the Hebrew dietary laws. I'm telling you, these is facts. The original African God man of the Nile, the word ancient translates to the eras of wisdom and to when we were gods. When I tell you, the Baphomet is nothing scary. Eliseus Levi connotated that. He got the science from the River Nile god. I promise you that, s'mores. It begins around 5000 BC and extends to the creation of the fall of man. The Euless sons of Europe were not even a thought or a best. So you got to understand this. And the word ancient usually applies to the civilized periods, peoples and times prior to European exodus and attempted socialization. Y'all got to understand that. Yeah, the Bible is one of the great books if you know how to digest it. Because why? They all attest to it. That's why when I show y'all the Nation of Islam, all y'all got to do is look at their paper. I go over it every day. Act 1, we believe in the truth of the Bible, but it must be interpreted by its elite because it's been tampered with. I agree with that too. And then here go the Act, I think it's 13. Master Muhammad since 1930 is the Mahidah of the Christians and the Muslims since 1930. After who? Jesus died. You hear me that? So then I'll be telling people, how can a religious Negro, black in color, call himself a Moor? This religious Negroes that's confused about Christianity, and y'all pray to both things outside of yourself. And then you got somebody over you, because they says that Fire Muhammad is the Mahida of the Christians and the Muslims since 1930, after Jesus has passed. So if that's the case, hell, Jesus was before Muhammad. If we're going to listen to their teachings, these are simple questions you can ask. These are simple questions. Then the person start, I'm telling you. Then they start buck dancing. And that's what I'm saying. It's the teachings. You know, because of Gog and Magog, the other you children did not awaken in holistically harmony with the earth and universe. A warlike nature became a way of life. That's why I be saying their books. I have them. That's why I'm like, I be laughing. I'm like, man, I ain't coming up with nothing. I can use their books from their authors, from their pen. Look, this is something me and my dad talk about. If the pen doesn't match the carbon, which is the carbon dating, you damn sure don't change the carbon dating. Did that tell you the pen been changed? Because I can show you how they changed the pen from short to brown to tall and white. I can show you in the Bukhari Hadith how I talk about Joe back skin. And then you got some religious Muslims talk about Islam. This I say, ain't no religious Islam. That ain't for me. That's Al-Islam. Don't bring me that mixed up Arabian stuff. Don't bring me that. You know, this American Islam. So don't get mad with it. If you want to study under something, let's say you studying something outside of yourself. But that ain't more science. Actually, the only thing a master mason knows and don't tell is who is buried in a shallow grave and the true free identity of the so-called Negro, black, and colored people. However, Cohen Moore, this statement has obviously omitted Muslims completely because they are the ones who are forbidden to argue, but no one will tell the truth. And this coin earth-bound remarks does not apply to Emmanuel, the God and man, the men of God, who still know today what Masons know not. I'm telling y'all, man. So I'm going to leave y'all with this. The Masonic story of Hiram Abif, man, is King Solomon summoned the most accomplished craftsmen in the civilized world, India, Persia, China. The call was for the masters of the order of Melchizedek from the sacred school of the Nazarenes in the biblical scripture, Acts chapter 24 and 5. I think this pestilent brother of the ringleader of the Nazarenes. Look that up. And after brother named Hiram Abif, who was also a master of building tools, also answered this Nazarene call. Said who also was a master. Also mean somebody else, more than one. I hope y'all following me. There was one Hiram from the kingdom of Tyre, the capital of which was Sidon, in the village of Zephyrath, where he lived with his mother. One of Hiram's specialties was constructing pillars. The purpose of a pillar is to support that which is above, which that is below. When I show y'all my charts, my metaphysical charts, when I show y'all about the pillars, and the pillars represent the tabernacle of man made without hands, I hope y'all following me, because if you're not, you totally off the line. Hiram's headdress, called the fez, depicted the mastery of his craft. 1 Kings chapter 7. The other biblical Hiram is from Tyre, or Ty, T-Y-E. Hiram Abif became the master builder of King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. One day as Hiram, with his tools, was on his assigned route, 3 ruffians savagely killed him. The 3 robbers was Jubal, and Jubalim. Don't that ring a bell? Stole Hiram's tools and clothes. And the 3 assailants were from the sun-cursed tribes and were after the secrets of King Solomon's temple, and were beside themselves for not being invited to the building of the grand temple. I'm just giving you the story so you can know. You see how we correct ourselves? These teachings are supposed to be correcting us, bringing us back to something. If we bring it back to something, that means we have the teachings. Hiram Abif stood naked before them, and after they saw he did not have the key to Solomon's temple, the thieves knocked Hiram in the head with the setting maul. That's the maul that the Masons use when they talk about something in memory of Hiram Abif. That's one of the tools that they use to knock your ass in the head and bury you in a shallow grave. I'm showing y'all the science. killing him at high noon. To hide their crimes, the murderers buried Haram in a shallow grave in the northern portion of the kingdom and concealed the grave with an evergreen plant on the top of it. When they searched for him, they figured out, they killed him, blah, 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 blah. You see? That's how that religious plus slavery equals Freemasonry. From 1460 to 1492, from 1555 to 1960, the enslavement of the Moors was a religious issue. It was supported by the Jews with the Torah. I tell y'all got to read it. Enforced by the Muslims with the Quran. And all entities under the cross, from the Roman Catholic popes, Vatican, to the Christian Church of Europe. King James I, or King James, solicited literary expertise of Shakespeare. So his version of the Bible would endorse slavery as an act ordained by God. Can't be no widow's son. The widow's son is a myth made from the minds of Western Freemasonry and cloaked in secrecy, Moors. And most lies originated from some degree of truth, or as most jokes are founded upon some type of reality. Likewise, all this outside of ourselves, this Masonic rituals, these signs, tools, and symbols, they are diluted reflections of African origination. And the so-called widow son is no exception, Moors, to these fundamental principles. In European Masonry, no disrespect to no one, the widow son is described or descriptive of the Western African God-man, whose code name is Haram Abif. And Haram Abif, the widow son, generally code names, are used by secret societies, government officials, military intelligence, and all that. Worldly thinkers to conceal the true identities of operations and agents, Moors. Code names are nom, diplomes. Are you right, Moors? Trickle down to the what? The hoi polloi. And used as what? Nicknames, alias, aka stage names, or in writing as an author, what? Pseudonym. I'm sorry. I told you my mom right here, she corrected. Which were people, the pen name, when y'all be talking about some Flavius Joseph, for man, look, anybody that knew some science, that taught something, they had to write in their pen name, or you would be killed. Because you went against the Catholic Church, or Christianity, or Islam.
Especially a lot of women writers had to use pen names, because they thought they were men, because women weren't able to
you hear that? Just like my mom was saying, the women had to use pen names because they had to act like men, because they word so-called didn't mean nothing to certain people. And it's the same thing now with organized religion, churches and groups talking about the women have no voice. Well, how can a woman have a voice? And that's fallen humanity if all these goofballs in here lying. I'd rather listen to a woman that's teaching the truth than a whole bunch of Negroes with feathers on eating chicken and cookies all day. I'm telling y'all, man, because I'm looking at the body. I'm like, how you ain't ready to go to war? You flabby and sick. You ain't preaching nothing. You ain't teaching nothing. Come on, man. We got to do better than that. But that's that Haram Abif, the widow son. Those are code names. No matter the social level, the depictive or false identifications are used to hide the correct and proper person, place, or thing. So when I talk about Haram Abif, the widow son, it originated from the same, no disrespect, from the same European minds which created the names Negro, Black, and Color. No disrespect. The 3/5 clause. When they change things, when I told y'all, one of the books I'm gonna break out is called Russian Icona. It's by Ivan Vladimir, and it shows you pictures how, no disrespect again, because I gotta say that, but it's in the book, how the Europeans are whitewashing themselves in the history books. And then you read in Maccabees where it says the Gentile, the heathen, is trying to whitewash themselves in the history books. You ain't gotta listen to me, and then I can show you in the Old Testament Apocrypha and the New Testament Apocrypha how they trying to convert people to Gentiles. You ain't gotta be mad at me. I'm just telling you what it is. That's how the 3/5 clause. And they tried to rewrite Yahshua, the blue-eyed, just like how they tried to do Muhammad. I told y'all in the Bukhari Hadith how the pen was changed. And the trust is the legal tender of man-made gods, formed from the dust of past presidents, America's first sheeted terrorists. Y'all know what that was. And the Masonic offerings included what? Santa Claus, Humpty Dumpty, U.S. presidents at the corporate United States of America. I'm telling y'all, man. And the average John Doe citizen would probably be shocked if they knew all this illusionist contribution to society. It was created or prompted in the lodges of Freemasonry. Y'all got to know this. And the table has been set for learning the truth about the widow's son. The life of any widow begins with the death of her husband, and she is not remarried. A widow is respected but unprotected. An unprotected woman is a first alert denoting to the fall of a nation. We're not talking about the atrocities of the single mother. I'll teach that later. But symbolically, the widow is a code word descriptive of a nation in adversary or adversity who cannot defend itself or prosper because its government and power has become substandard. And most churches and secret society collect what? Donations. What they call it, Ma? What? The donation that the churches and secret society collect. Don't they call it a widow's mite?
The widow's mite.
To help women who have been widowed. And the laws, right? Yeah. And the laws of marriage bond has raised her from female to woman to support the high station of wife. From there, she was raised to motherhood because she alone can create a God in 9 months without the sound of a hammer or nail. That's what that fez represent, that 9 to the 9 to the 9th power. And allegedly, Haram Abif, the widow's son, prosperity, has now been compromised with the death of his father. Secretly, his son's code name is Haram Abif, but publicly, his shallow graves have been clearly marked and accepted as what? The misnomer Negro, black, and colored people. Y'all following me? So if you got to imagine that the widow was a Mexican or Africa, and her son is the God-man of the Nile, which they all write about, but they try to make it scary. I told y'all about Alicia Levi, transcendental magic, and the Baphomet, that all animal figures are nothing but pious hieroglyphs. I'm telling you. And you can see what the furthest thing from that fake Willie Lynch mess all about. It's Masons. It's the Mason's mind. Possibility of Haram being raised from the constitutional shallow grave, intact as one nation, bearing one free national name. I'm telling y'all, man. I leave you with this. There can be no widow while Allah is the husbandman. Right? I leave y'all. Islam.